Well, hello everyone. Jack over at Vintage Electronic Geeks has been restoring a Syncor. I think this is the FC-45. And he got to the display board and was having a bit of trouble. So I was going to just go ahead and replace these LEDs for him, the display units, this 7 segment. And he replaced the one that was out, and sure enough, you know, some traces got lifted on the back of it. And it's not really something that you make a mistake on. You just have to know that, you know, first of all, these are double-sided boards. Plus the old solder is very old on it. And there's a technique that you really need to use to desolder these things to keep it from lifting the traces off of it. You know, you got to get your heat just right and use plenty of flux to get things to work right. So I was just going to do a short video on replacing these display segments. But first of all, I wanted to show you something else here. Here is a beautiful Heathkit crystal receiver. It is the model CR1. Now, a friend of mine, which is one of the engineers at work, he bought this and put this thing together in the 60s. And you can see it's just in very nice shape. We'll turn it around. Look at the back of it. You can see how, you know, all it is 2 variable capacitors. There's a switch that kicks in some more capacitance, and there's a germanium diode. And then you got this coil that is on a former with a iron slug inside. And that's basically all there is to it. Not a whole lot to these things. I built one many years ago when I was a little kid that was called the Foxhole radio. And it was just made out of stuff that the soldier would have been able to find out in the field to put a radio together with. Now, he also had the original crystal headset that come with it, and I've took these apart and cleaned them and put them back together. The wiring that was on the original headset is right here, and it's just no good at all. I mean, as you can see, it just comes right apart, completely rotten. So I had to pull that out, but I did save the outer jackets, so I could run new wires in these jackets and put them back in and kind of give it that original look. I connected this up, put it on the ground, long wire antenna, put the crystal headsets in, and I could not, you know, detect anything that was receiving. I checked the diode checks good. Everything looks okay. I think the problem is my hearing does not detect audio from crystal headsets. So I'm somewhere here in the shop, I used to have the a little realistic audio amplifier that was made to connect to systems like this, old crystal sets, and put it on a speaker so you can hear it. So I either need to find that or sit down and just build a new amplifier. So yeah, I'm completely deaf in my right ear and only have 40% hearing in my left, and there's a lot of certain tones that my hearing does not pick up at all. But anyway, one thing that is missing with this is the original bakelite case, and he said it got cracked, and then later on, you know, it just fell apart, and so I don't have the case for it. So I thought about sitting down and just 3D printing a new case for this, but as good a shape as this thing is in, I think I'm going to build a small wooden box to put this in, and I might make it big enough that underneath I can build a amplifier circuit with a speaker and put in it, and then have a little hinge door that closes up and just covers the whole thing to help protect it and keep the dust off of it and stuff. So I'll be playing around with that later on and see what we can come up with. But yes, these things go for ungodly prices on eBay. I have seen them up to 300 bucks. There's a replica kit also being made that I've been seeing sold on eBay. But you know, it's more modern components, and they use the smaller tuning caps and toroid coils for the loop antenna. But yeah, I thought it was very interesting that he happened to have this and put it together in the 60s, and decided he would go ahead and pass it on to me. He also had the Science Fair kit, which was, you know, was sold by Radio Shack, that he threw into the deal also. And this is something that he built years ago. So yeah, we'll have to play with this. Has one electrolytic and 2 transistors. But the coil looks in good shape. Like it's intact. I haven't even tried it yet. Again, you know, my ears do not pick up sound from crystal headsets. So yeah, I really need to build an amplifier, or find that old Radio Shack amplifier and try these things out and see if they still work. Okay, so anyway, back on the Synco FC-45 display board. You know, we want to get the rest of these LEDs out so we can put the new ones in, and we have the bag of them here. But we want to do it without removing the traces on the top and the bottom of the board. Now here he had 2 traces got lifted on the one that he replaced, so we're going to go in and we're going to replace those traces back like they were and put some conformal coating on them and get that right so it'll look good. So 2 things you want to do when you're first repairing a vintage board of this nature that is built this way is to use plenty of flux. So when you're going to go in here and you're going to remove the displays, just go ahead and just apply plenty of flux to these pads. And if you're worried about wasting flux, then you're worrying about the wrong thing. And what I like to do then, is after I had applied flux, is go ahead and reflow with fresh solder on all the pads. Again, remember to keep your temperature down low so that you don't lift any traces up with heat. So like I say, this board is old. I think this frequency counter was around the 80s. You don't worry about bridging anything when you're going to remove them. Okay, so we applied flux, we applied new solder. We're going to take our desoldering tool. I'm having to use my aftermarket handheld piece on the paste because I've got a leaky seal on the paste unit, so I got to order some new seals for it. Now you got to remember that you got to let the heat transfer all the way to the front. So that you'll melt the solder all the way through. But you want to do it so that the heat does not lift the pad. Alright, now that display segment should pull right out. So if everything went well, we're going to use one of the Dino spongers. And look at that, no problems at all. You can see those traces on the top side, and you can see where the solder had came all the way through. Where the top of those pads are bright and shiny. 3 at the top and there's 1 at the bottom. Now these has vias in them also, you know, and that's just a little tube that goes from one side of the board to the other. So as long as we can get the rest of them off without pulling any traces off, I think we'll be okay. And a shot of the back side, and it looked like I didn't see it come off. You can see one edge of this one is missing. I don't know if that was missing when it was installed or if it came off. I did not see it on the tip. But you know, it's just one little corner of that pad, which that pad is just a floating pad. It's not connected on this side, it's connected on the other side. So you do have to watch out, you know. That I think may have came, you know, was done when it was put together originally. I'll go ahead and get the rest of them done. We'll get all these off, and then we'll concentrate on fixing up this middle pad on the one that Jack had replaced. See one there on the edge, you can see a little barge wire going across, and a little barge wire on the other side here. So we'll just fix them right up for them. That one had a bent pin on it, and when I tried to lift that bent pin up, it took half of that pad off. As you can see right there, for some reason they had this pin bent down, and by trying to use the desoldering tool to straighten it up, it took the top half of it off, but still there's plenty of pad on the bottom, so that won't be no problem at all. So far all the rest of them came off with no trouble at all. Well, as you can see now, I have all the display segments all installed. So now all we need to do is turn the board over. We'll look at the back of it. And here we are. So you can see all the soldering is done, and what we need to tackle now is this center display segment, and see, can't we repair those traces. No problems with the rest of them. Did lose half the trace on this one here, but there's no problem at all with that. The rest of it looks quite nicely. So probably the best thing to do with this one is we'll go ahead and desolder this segment and get it out. And I've already cleaned the board, but after we desolder it, we need to clean it again. And I also have the diagram showing the front and the back traces on how they need to be. So we got something to go by. We don't have to worry about taking any pictures of anything. So now I'll go ahead and get this display off and clean this back up, and we'll see what we need to do. Now if you notice, there's a couple of pins here. This pin here on the end, and the pin down here in the bottom left corner right there. There's no pads left on it, and what this is, these are soldered to the other side of the board, to the top side traces. So we'll need to reinstall those pads and make sure that we have, when we do that, that we get continuity from the top side to the bottom side. Okay, I got that 770 display out, and as you can see, this trace here is cut on the end, broken off. This trace here is completely gone. It needs to connect to this line running here. Should be a pad here. Should be a pad on this end. This trace here comes around and goes to here, and the rest of them look okay. So we're going to have to replace those traces. And if you haven't seen before, if you go back and look at my video number 19, I show the complete steps on how to do it. And what we have is some copper foil, and on the back side you can see it's oxidized, and this is how it comes. So whatever you cut off, you'll need to clean the back side where you're going to solder onto. This area I just completely cleaned with some Scotch-Brite. So I'm going to go ahead and cut these traces out and get them laying up on the board. Now you can't use super glue to glue these traces down, because as soon as the heat hits it, the super glue is going to just go away. It's not even going to hold the trace on. Now this product here from Circuit Works is an epoxy overcoat, and you see it's a two-part epoxy. This also works real great as a bond to underbond the traces back to the circuit board, and this is what I always use. The thing is, it takes about 24 hours for it to cure out. So once you cut the traces and you glue them down, you go back over top of it with some Kapton tape and put it under a heat lamp at the recommended temperature that it calls for, and let it, you know, stay overnight, so that it'll go ahead and cure out and hold your trace down. So I'm going to go ahead and get these cut out and get them on the board. That's the first trace installed, and the one I'm working on now is the one that's soldered to other traces. So all I did was just cut it out and then solder this in, and I got the foil laid out. So what I'll do once I'm finished soldering all in place, I'll go back and I'll undercoat it and then put the Kapton tape on it, and that'll hold it down in place. So I'm going to work on getting this one and this one, and I might go ahead and repair this one also. There's not a lot of trace left, and then I'll get these glued down and we'll tape it up and let it sit overnight. Well, you can see all of the traces are cut and laid out. The ones that was going to traces, which is this one, this middle one, and this one, are already soldered to the traces. These other two are just laying up there, so if I was to sneeze, they would just simply go away and I would have to cut new ones. So now I'm going to go ahead and mix up some epoxy, and I'll lift the ones up that are soldered and put the undercoat underneath of it, and we'll have to pick these up and get the undercoat out of those, and then I'll get it all taped down with Kapton tape and let it sit overnight. And it's time to go ahead and pick a winner for our FY3200 function generator. Mr. B. Blod, you are the winner of the FY3200 function generator. Be sure to PM me and let me know your information, and we'll be getting this off to you. So congratulations to B. Blod. Well, don't you hate it when you're doing something and you forget to hit record? Too early in the morning, about 4 a.m. and I got all the segments installed. We got the traces all fixed, and you can see the overcoat all over the board, and everything is back in. Now, unfortunately, I don't really have a way to test the display without building something to go in here and interface with it to bring all the digits up. So we just want to call it fixed and we'll send it back to Jack and let him give it a try and see how things work. Well, there you go, Jack, all put back together, assembled. Sorry I missed that footage of the final, but sometimes that happens. But anyway, it should be good to go now. I don't really have no way of testing other than just putting voltage on the back of the segments, but that really just shows that the segments are working. It doesn't show that the rest of the unit is working correctly. So you'll have to test that for yourself and let me know how that goes. Anyway, congratulations again to B. Blod for winning the FY3200S function generator. I hope you'll find it very useful, and I want to wish everybody a very Merry Christmas and a safe holiday. So if you would, leave your comments down below, and we'll be doing some more stuff on Patreon for here long, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye now.